All right, so happy, so appreciative to have one of the preeminent voices of college football on with us here on the Illini Inquirer podcast. It's Brad Nessler, CBS Sports, called Illinois, Michigan, did a wonderful job. What a broadcast that was, Brad. But back on it with Illinois, Oregon this week. So you're our Illinois expert now here.
Yeah, just like I was a USC expert earlier in the year. Now I'm an Illinois expert. I don't mind that though. It cuts down on the homework a little bit, but just haven't seen him 3 or 4 days ago. But yeah, I'm looking forward to this. Haven't been out to Eugene in a while. Coming off a big win for Illinois should be fun.
Well, take us back to last week, Brad. That was I got to go back and watch the copy after obviously being there. What was the experience of calling that game with everything around it? The great intro you guys did, and obviously a big win for Illinois.
Yeah, we weren't really on the schedule to do that game originally, and I kept looking at it going to Gary and Jenny, man, I wish we could do that game. Man, I wish we could do that game. And then whatever happened between the networks, I don't know how that turned out, turned things around, but I was really excited because, I really, and I said this on the air, Gary and I, especially having gone back so far and done so many games and done memorable games and the history of the game, be it college or pro football, it's just a big thing to me. I mean, my cats are named Lavelli and Van Brocklin, so I mean, and my first two were Butkus and Nitschke, as a matter of fact, about 35 years ago. So the history of the game means a lot to me. And then the more we dug into it, I mean, I knew the Red Grange for the most part, most of what happened on that day 100 years ago. But, when we started looking into things and started kind of preparing our open, I think all of us got into it a little bit more than we even expected. It's like the night before the game, I'm still digging through things and I'd start reading more and more, not just about that game, but about Red Grange and just about college football in that day and age. And that it, really wasn't as big a deal as, I mean, pro football wasn't as big a deal as it is now. And so college football was the it thing in the fall. And I knew that part too, but I don't know. We just got into it, and the more we looked forward to it, and the more we got into the spirit of doing it in black and white at the beginning, and the whole open to the game it was really a lot of fun. It took a lot of work, and it took everybody's input, the whole team. We got 100 people on our crew, and everybody had something to do with it, even up to the people that were buying the sweaters and that was my own hat, but we had to buy the sweaters. So, and the microphones came in the morning of the game, the old-fashioned microphones. So the whole thing really fit together, and we were pretty proud of it.
Uh, you're a pro because you answered my question. Where'd the wardrobe come from? So you found the hat. Where's the hat at?
Yeah, the hat's still in our trailer right now. I was going to bring it home, but it took so long to pack it without crushing it the first time that I thought Saturday night when I'm watching Georgia and Texas, I don't want to do a hurry up pack job. And when I get home, my hat's messed up. And the ascot I wore was my dad's back in the day. So that was in my tie closet. And so I had a little bit of everything from yesteryear going on in that.
It looked phenomenal. So
Thank you.
obviously, the game lived up to what Illinois wanted it to be, right, Brad? I mean, they put a lot into this. So what stood out to you just about? I know Michigan's struggling; they got quarterback issues, but what stood out to you
Yeah.
about Illinois in that game?
I thought the defense was the biggest thing. Aaron Henry talking to him the day before the game, and I did some of his games when he was playing at Wisconsin, and I thought he'd be a good coach. I didn't know if he'd go into the coaching ranks, but he was a heck of a leader back when he was playing, and so talking to him before the game, his enthusiasm kind of rubs off on you a little bit, and I know it rubs off on his players, but I mean, they played lights out. But Matthew Bailey played as good a game in the secondary as I can remember anybody playing. And Gabe Akis, I don't know if he'll ever have a game like that. So they're going to need that and a lot more against Oregon. So, I think the offense was okay. They're going to have to be a lot better against Oregon. But the defense was the highlight for me for Illinois. And, the fake punt that Bret pulled out of his pocket, that was pretty cool too. So good surprises at the right times, getting three and outs, getting turnovers. It was a big thing. And, Michigan's struggling, but still, you beat Michigan. It's a feather in your cap, no matter what the ranking is.
Brad, you get to cover some of the best environments in college football. To be honest with you, I've covered this program for like a decade and a half now. I haven't seen many like that at Illinois. So did anything stand out to you just about the fans like really wanted this? This felt like a big moment for them.
Yeah, no doubt. I don't know if it was the whole week leading up to it or just the fact that it was Michigan and hadn't beaten them in six straight tries. Gorgeous day, sellout crowd. the whole 100th anniversary thing. But yeah, they brought it. I mean, it was great. The outside atmosphere was awesome too. We were walking around and some of our folks are saying, this atmosphere, and I don't mean to say it this way because the Big Ten is obviously great, but we've covered the SEC for so long. And some of our people are going, man, this got an SEC feel outside, all the tailgating and everything. And then they brought the noise when they had to bring the noise, and it was a great crowd. I hope every home game's like that from now on. And as Bret keeps building the program, hopefully that'll be the case.
I know you have a long history with Bret. So can you dive into that a little bit and what you think he's been able to do here so far?
Well, yeah, it goes back to I did a couple of his games when he was a player. And he was a captain as a senior, and he was kind of a plugger. He's still a plugger, if you ask me. But
Sure.
and then Kansas State and Iowa, and then when he got the defensive coordinator job with Barry at Wisconsin, Barry and I were pretty tight. You don't have a lot of friends in this business because sometimes you can't get close because they won't let you, or there's some reason that they're not the same kind of personality you are, that type of thing. But Barry and I just clicked. The years that they were really good, and the first time they went to the Rose Bowl, they played Michigan State in Tokyo, and Gary and I went over there basically by ourselves and did that game. And Gary became the analyst and the sideline reporter, and we had Japanese camera people that fell asleep during the game. We were moving our own cameras and everything. So we built a ground floor with Wisconsin. And then when Bret took over for Barry, it was just a natural progression. Both those guys have come to my hometown. I had a charity golf tournament for about 25 years, and Barry was there a couple of years. Bret was there a couple of years. When you show up in my hometown of 3,000 people in southeastern Minnesota, you become family. You know what I mean? So, and then following him to Arkansas, and things didn't work out there as well as he wanted, obviously. But to see him get back in now and be putting the Illinois program together, I think it's a perfect fit for him. He's an Illinois guy. Grew up, everybody knows the hog farm, a couple hours up the street. And I just hope I hope he can make it work. Right now he's making it work, and I hope it continues.
He always says that Illinois is getting the best version of him, right? Like he was pretty
Yeah.
brazen at Wisconsin and tried to go at the biggest level at Arkansas. Like, what kind of version do you think they're getting? Like, how have you seen him evolve?
Yeah. I knew him when he was a bachelor, and I'd go over to his house like Thursday night before the game when I did a Wisconsin game, and then, saw him meet Jen, and she knew right away that was the girl for him. And now with having two girls and everything, I've seen him grow as a man, as a dad. As a coach, I think he's gotten better every time. I think the time he spent with Belichick, not any big glaring things, but just little things you can pick up from, one of the best coaches in pro football history helps. And, I think along the way, he's probably calmed down a little bit. I don't know necessarily on the sideline, but I mean, kind of like, behind the scenes, he was going 100 miles an hour, and now I think he goes like 95, somewhere around there. But no, I just think, seeing him mature and go from being a bachelor and a young guy to being whatever he is, 54, and a dad. I think all those things, you just get better in life, and you get better as a coach.
Well, number one, Oregon obviously is a national story for this broadcast, right? They're back to being number one under Dan Lanning. First time head coach is at Oregon. But from your perspective with this game, why is Illinois interesting going into this matchup from a national perspective?
Well, I think it's a little bit like Indiana or some of the other surprises. People are looking at it going, wait a minute, who's leading the Big Ten? Oregon, first of all. A lot of people are still getting used to the fact that there's four more teams in the Big Ten, and four of them are on the West Coast. And they're going, okay, Oregon's in first place. Yeah, it's great. Oh, they're tied with Indiana. Really? Indiana? It's a basketball school. What's Indiana doing there? And then you see, Illinois with one loss and being, in the top 20, and you go, hey, this is a good game. They just got done beating Michigan. The other two teams that were ranked that they beat were Nebraska and Kansas, and you can say, well, they're not ranked anymore. Hey, that's the way it is. They were ranked when he beat them, so their only loss was to Penn State. And if you watch that game, a couple of things could have gone a lot better when they got near the goal line in the red zone. And who knows, that might have been either, a closer game or a win. So I just think, I hung around with guys on Sunday watching the Falcons fall all over themselves here in Georgia, here in Atlanta. And everybody's going, man, Illinois is not bad. And these are guys that don't care about Illinois. And a lot of them don't care about the Big Ten because they're SEC fans, because all they worry about is the Georgia Bulldogs. So just from the perspective of me getting around a bunch of guys that talk college football while we're watching pro football, and the fact that they know what Illinois is about and who some of the players are, I think that just tells you that the whole nation probably is thinking the same way.
What do you think of this task against number one Oregon? Penn State was a great team too, but this Oregon team looks different.
Yeah, it's different, Jeremy. It's going to take a monumental effort. I got to tell you. I mean, I think first of all, like I said, if their defense plays like it did against Michigan, but this isn't Jack Tuttle and just the tight end, the only guy you can throw to. I mean, you're talking about Dylan Gabriel and Tez Johnson and Trayshawn Holden and a bunch of guys that are big timers, and their backfield's really good. Um, I think you have to score 30 points to beat them, and then you have to hope that the defense is as good as it was against Michigan. Early in the season, I thought Oregon looked good, but not great. Last two and a half, 3 games, they look really good. So, I mean, out there, they don't usually lose. They're 35-1 their last 36 games at Outson. It's going to take a monumental effort. I don't say that it can't be done. We've seen it 2 or 3 weeks ago when there was a lot of upsets. And the last time Oregon had the number one ranking, they had it for a week and they were done. So Chip Kelly's 2012 team, I think it was. But, I think Luke's going to have to play lights out. The wide receivers are going to have to be great. The defense has got to be as good, if not better, against Michigan. I'm not saying it can't be done, but I think you got to score 30 and hope your defense plays like it did last week.
Well, Brad, I'm a media guy, so I can't not ask you some media nerd questions about this business. You follow in the footsteps of guys like Keith Jackson and Brent Musburger and Vern Lundquist, just great play-by-play guys for CBS. What's it like to be in that chair? And what's that mean to you?
Yeah, I think someday I'll look back on it and realize it a little bit more than I do now. I think when it's happening, when I was at ABC and ESPN, Keith would do a championship game, and then Brett would do a championship game, then I'd do the next one, and we rotated like that. And so, at the time, you're just going, okay, it's my turn to do the championship game. But, when you get in seminars with those guys, the first time I probably met them, I was probably in awe of Keith. It's like, holy cow, this is the hoss, man. This is Whoa Nelly and the whole thing. The first time I was at CBS, I was 90 and 91. And, I don't think Brett knew my name. Brent just called me Kid. Hey, Kid. How you doing, Kid? How you doing, Kid? He'd probably still do that today if I ran into him out in Vegas or whatever. But when it's happening, you don't think about it. I thought about it a lot more in taking over for Vern, because Vern was kind of like a mentor. The last year that he was doing the Cowboys on radio was the first year I was doing the Falcons on radio. And so we crossed paths, and he was obviously a veteran guy. And I was, 25 doing the Falcons play-by-play. And he was so gracious to me. And he did a couple of Peach Bowls on TV when I was doing Peach Bowls on radio. And I would go to the Peach Bowl banquet, and he would like point me out, and go, good friend of mine. And we were friends, but we weren't great friends. And then he would bother CBS, like Chuck Milton and Ted Shaker and those guys, say, hey man, there's this young guy in Atlanta. You should hear him. You should check him out and all this kind of stuff. And whether he had any bearing on that, when Ted Shaker called me in 1991, I guess, during the basketball season and said, hey, you want to come and work for us? And I'm like, yeah. So taking over for Vern, being that he was kind of a mentor, and the fact that he'd done it so long, and he was such an institution in the SEC in that 3:30 time slot, that was probably a little bigger deal to me, because I felt like, man, I got to live up to the billing. And I guess the other two guys, same thing, but at the time I wasn't thinking about it because I knew Vern was going into just golf and semi-retirement type of thing. And I had to get in his chair and wear his headset, and I couldn't let him down.
Yeah, well, you're doing a great job. How do you prepare? How do you approach the job each week when you get these games, some of the biggest games in the country, obviously?
Yeah, I prepare the same way pretty much every week. Uh, I used to go back and watch the game that we just did, and I tend to not do that anymore. I know Gary does, and Craig Silver does, our producer, and Jenny might, I don't know. But I already know what we did well and what we screwed up, so I don't want to go back and relive it. But I do watch the game of the team that we didn't have. And in this case, I didn't have to do that because I spent all Friday night watching Oregon beat up on Purdue. So that was my study for that. So it gave me a little more leeway this week. But, it's constant study. I'm, halfway through this week's preparation, and sometimes I'm still looking at things on Saturday in the booth 3 hours before the game. But there's so much information, and sometimes there's too much information. And we get it from all sides, and I know you do that, and you're part of that. You're what you guys do is part of our preparation that we look at and go, oh, Jeremy said this, or somebody said this. So it's a lot, but it's a lot of fun, and I go about it pretty much the same week, and I prepare if it's two unranked teams, or if it's two top 20 teams, or if it's the Big Ten championship or national championship. Prepare the same way pretty much every week.
The last one I got for you, Brad, is you have such a great partnership with Gary Danielson, and it's been so long. What is the key to a great partnership? What don't people know about a play-by-play man and his analyst?
Yeah. We talk about a lot of things off the air. We talk a lot of football off the air, and a lot of other things when we're just hanging out. And we talk during the week on the phone and all that. And in the off season, we're on the phone pretty often together. I don't know. We just hit it off. We started in '92 together, and we worked 8 years together. And then I always say we got divorced, and then we got remarried 7 years ago. So it's 15 years together. We kind of know what each other's thinking. I think he just does an unbelievably great job explaining the game, not what happened, but what's coming up. And, he could do that on just about every play, but he doesn't, the predicting thing. He's just awesome at what he does. I think he respects my knowledge of football, not just as a broadcaster, but the game itself. And what we try to do, and it is what we do, we're just two guys. It's not so much just broadcast. Here's a play-by-play guy. Here's an analyst. We just sit and talk ball like we're sitting at a bar having a beer. And, that's kind of the way we approach it. It's natural to us to just sit and talk football. And, when the play is big, I get excited. When the play is big and it's complicated, he can, dice it all up and tell you why. But other than that, we're sitting there for 3.5 hours talking ball and hoping people are, kind of talking along with us.
Absolutely. That's the best atmosphere to have. Just
Yeah.
talking ball. Brad Nessler, CBS Sports. Can't thank you enough for your time, your insight, and have fun on the call out in Austin. Hopefully, I'll see you there.
Okay. You got it. See you out there.